What's going on, True Soldiers? It's Lou Bradford here, aka King Truth with True Soldiers Education. And today we're going to be speaking on the second principle in our two-part series, Reaching Your Peak Through a Growth Mindset. And our second principle is titled The Gift and Purposeful Practice. We'll be looking into those elite performers and how they reach that excellence through purposeful practice. We'll jump right in with looking at what psychologists like to call the fixed mindset. We'll juxtapose the fixed mindset with the growth mindset here shortly. But the fixed mindset, which most of us have in today's culture, unfortunately, is the mindset of looking at those elite performers as they must have been born with a gift, a talent that I wasn't born with. But having that, viewing that elite performance, that talent from that aspect, is actually dangerous, because it plants a seed in your mind that says if they were born with that talent, that gift that I wasn't born with, I might as well not even try and put forth the effort to achieve greatness. But in actuality, we were all born with the gift. You were born with the gift, I was born with the gift, everybody was born with the gift. And the way to achieve that, to develop and improve that gift, is via purposeful practice. If you look at those elite performers, just about all of them reach that elite excellence, that greatness, the same way, through day-by-day habits and rituals and routines, practices and trainings that they set into place that help them gain small, marginal, incremental improvements over time. What you see, for instance, what you see Michael Phelps doing, obtaining 22 gold medals. We see him going out there and outperforming all the other athletes most of the time. But what we don't see is his daily rituals, his nutritional habits, his mind training habits, his training, his rituals, his practice that he puts in behind closed doors. So we'll look into what purposeful practice is. But there's what scientists call the golden standard of practice, which is deliberate practice. Deliberate practice is domains where there's a set optimum level standard that you can achieve, and there are certain set top performers that you can look at and break down their techniques and acquire those techniques through observing how they do it to adapt yourself into an optimum level to reach your peak. So, and also there are teachers in that domain that can help you along the way to reaching that peak. For instance, those domains, certain deliberate domains that you can do deliberate practice in are games like chess or certain sports that you can practice in. Most of us will be able to engage in what's called purposeful practice. But before we talk about purposeful practice, we'll juxtapose deliberate and purposeful practice with naive practice, what those aren't. And naive practice is basically what you do when you just go to practice and you go through the motions and you gain fluency and you just do what you're good at. You're not keying in to the deficiencies that you need to work on to improve. That's naive practice. But where you want to be, where most of us can, where all of us can engage in is purposeful practice. There are 4 elements, key elements to purposeful practice. The first one is to have a specific set goal that you want to reach and a plan to how you're going to reach that goal. You'll have a meta goal, a meta long-term goal, like your peak, where you put that flag in the top of the mountain, the peak. But you also need to break that meta goal down into small daily goals. What you need to do to win. WIN. What's important now. What you will need to focus on. With the intent to deliberately and purposely get better. The second key element in purposeful practice is to focus. Deliberate and purposeful practice isn't fun and isn't easy, but it's what you need to do, opposed to just going out, going through the motions and gaining fluency, opposed to true mastery in what you're practicing. There's pain in focusing intensely on what you need to do. Hence the term, the somewhat cliche maxim, if there's no pain, there's no gain. The third key principle and element in purposeful practice is to get immediate feedback. You want to be able to measure your progress and your performance. For instance, if you look at a doctor, when they diagnose a patient, sometimes they have to wait months and years before they get that feedback to see what they did right, what they did wrong, to continue or improve those practices and sustain the good things, the positive things that went right. That's not the situation you want to be in. You want to be in the situation where you get immediate feedback so you can step by step improve. The last and fourth, but very important key element in purposeful practice is to reach and stretch outside your comfort zone. For instance, if you have a rubber band, I have a hairband, couldn't find a rubber band, but if you have that rubber band and it's just in this comfort zone and it doesn't have any tension in it, that's the comfort zone. But if you put tension in it and stretch it, not so much that it snaps, but just enough that you're getting into your stretch zone. If you get to the point where it pops, that can be looked at what's called the panic zone, where you're agitated, nervous, aggravated, frustrated. You know, where your challenges outmeet your skills. You want to be in the stretch zone where your challenges meet your skills, and what some scientists call flow, opposed to the latter and the comfort zone, where you're not in the panic zone, where you're anxious and agitated, but you're in the comfort zone where you're bored and your skills outmeet your challenges. To put the stretch zone in numerical value, you can look at what's called the 4% rule, where you want to stretch outside your comfort zone about 4% to get marginal incremental improvements, 4% each practice session. That intense practice requires restoration and diffusion and oscillation. So you'll want to rest after those intense practices and getting into your stretch zone. To look at the stretch zone and comfort zone in a scientific manner, you have what your body does is homeostasis, where it adapts to the environment and the circumstances it needs to adapt to compensate and put you at the optimum level, the sufficient level to efficiently match where you need to be, opposed to the comfort zone, where that can be looked at as homeostatic, where you're just staying still, you're on a level plane, where you're not improving through the 4% incremental improvements. You're not dynamically progressing. So you can look at an analogy where you have bodybuilders, and they build their muscle through lifting weights. What they do is overwork those muscles, and those muscles tear. That sends a signal to the brain saying, I need to overcompensate and rebuild those fibers even stronger, so the next time that this muscle is engaged in that activity, they can optimally lift that weight given the appropriate strength needed to lift that weight. So you wanna stretch outside your comfort zone. You want immediate feedback. You want immediate feedback. You want a set goal and a way to achieve that goal. And number 2, it slipped my mind, but it'll come back to me. You want all 4 of those elements to purposeful practice. Oh, the second one is to focus intensely. I'm big on practice, so I give you a few exemplars of where elite performers and teams and test takers, or whatever it may be, put those practices into existence. If you look at, there was a basketball team that was considered one of the worst shooting free throw percentage making teams in the league, and a practice that the coach decided to adapt, opposed to just shooting free throws after practice and gaining fluency in them. What he did was he took that team and broke them up in the middle of practice. He had them shoot free throws, just as if it was in a game situation where your heart's racing and you have a high stress level to make that free throw, because you want to practice the way you play. Therefore, in turn, you'll play the way you practice. And he said he put them in a pressure situation. He said that if you miss that free throw, then you'll have to run laps. So that stress level inoculated them to the stress level the highest stress level, the potential high stress level that they would be experiencing in the game. So just as if you were preparing for the Super Bowl or an exam or the ACT or SAT, like if you had to prepare for the SAT, you want or ACT, there are many of places you can go to take practice tests on that exam, that test, and you want to practice so many times that if you had to write the SAT or ACT, you could. Not only do you want to practice and practice and practice, you want to practice under pressure situations. For instance, if you took those practice tests, you want to put yourself into a time-based test where you're timing those practice tests. You have to which will simulate what would be the actual test to inoculate you into the stress level where you became immune to that stress. If you look at the Seattle Seahawks Super Bowl winning coach, he took that team numerous times to the Super Bowl through practicing under game situation practices and making them compete against each other just as if they were playing in the game during practices. Then he got with the team psychologist and they looked at what they needed to do to be at the ability to win the next Super Bowl. I believe they went back to back, if I'm not mistaken. What they needed to do to win that next Super Bowl and how they would do it. Not only how they would do it, but what obstacles would get into the way of that triumphant win. And they took a keen eye to those obstacles and then practiced at those obstacles that would be their deficiencies to helping them reach that optimum ability level to actually perform at the level they needed to get that second Super Bowl win. The last example that I'll give on practice, which I'm very big on, as you can see, is average athletes practice until they get it right. Elite athletes practice until they can't get it wrong. If you look at Kobe Bryant, after the team practice, he stayed in the gym and did his own practice. He shot 1,300 three-pointers and got to a percentage where he wasn't missing past that certain percentage. He was practicing until he couldn't get it wrong. So I hope you're having a good day and you look into the gift that we all have and what it takes to develop and improve progress in that gift month to month, year to year, to reach your peak over your lifetime. Appreciate it, true soldiers. I'll see you on the next principle. Appreciate it.